welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. I never saw it coming. The day had started with an unexpected offer from my boss, Mr. Reynolds, for a quick business trip, a perfect opportunity to impress at my new job. With a promising career ahead and a loving wife at home, I felt like the luckiest man alive. "Think of this as a stepping stone, Alan," Mr. Reynolds had said with a knowing smile. Little did I know, it was a setup for a revelation that would shatter my world. The business trip ended sooner than expected. Excited to return to Mealy, my wife of 3 years, I decided to surprise her. I imagined her delight seeing me home early, the joy that lit up her face whenever I returned from a trip. The taxi pulled up to our cozy suburban home as dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. I quietly unlocked the door, the surprise welling up inside me. But the scene that greeted me was not the one I had envisioned. The living room was dimly lit with candles casting long shadows on the walls, and a half-drunk glass of red wine sat on the coffee table. Rose petals led a trail towards our bedroom, their sweet scent heavy in the air. My heart sank. Confusion gave way to a boiling anger as I followed the trail, each petal fueling my growing dread. Reaching the bedroom, I heard soft whispers through the door. "Mealy." My voice cracked as I knocked. The whispers stopped abruptly, replaced by a tense silence. "Alan." "What? How are you home so early?" Mealy's voice was laced with panic. Ignoring her questions, I tried the handle. "Locked." "Open the door, Mealy," I demanded, my voice rising. There was a shuffling from inside, a soft curse, and then the unmistakable sound of the window sliding open. "Mealy, open the door." My hands trembled as I pounded on the door, my mind racing with images of betrayal. Finally, the lock clicked, and the door swung open. Mealy stood there, her face pale, her eyes avoiding mine. Ignoring her, I rushed to the open window just in time to see a figure climbing down our trellis. The fading light caught on his pink underpants adorned with hearts, an absurd detail that would have been funny in another life. My boss, Mr. Reynolds, his familiar frame scrambling awkwardly to the ground. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. "Mealy, how could you?" My voice was a whisper, broken by betrayal. "It's not what you think, Alan," Mealy pleaded, tears streaming down her face. But her words fell on deaf ears. My mind replayed every moment, every secret whisper I had been too trusting to question. The night air grew chilly as the door slammed behind me. I stood alone in our bedroom, the scent of roses and betrayal lingering in the air. Rage built within me, a storm that needed no encouragement. As I looked at the chaotic scene, candles, wine, petals, I knew what had to be done. Divorce was inevitable. But it wouldn't end there. Betrayed by my wife and my boss, my mind raced with dark thoughts of revenge. They had taken my happiness, I would take theirs. My revenge would be meticulous, calculated. A fitting response to their deception. And so, as the night drew on, I began to plan. My path was clear. My trust was shattered, but my resolve had never been stronger. They would regret the day they chose to betray Alan Mercer. The morning after was grim. The sun's brightness felt mocking, its warmth unearned as I walked through the empty house. Each step was a reminder of the betrayal that had unfolded under this very roof. I couldn't stay here, not with the echoes of deception bouncing off every wall. I needed a plan, something to channel the seething anger and hurt into action. I headed to the one place I knew I could think, the small, cluttered coffee shop down the street. It was early, and the usual bustle hadn't started yet. With a steaming cup in hand, I sat in the farthest corner, my mind racing through possibilities. Revenge needed to be exact, strategic. It needed to hit where it would hurt the most. "Alan, isn't it?" The voice pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up to see Rachel, a colleague from work, her eyes wide with concern. "Heard you came back early. Everything all right?" I weighed my response. Rachel was smart and might be useful. "Not exactly, Rachel. Have you ever realized that the people you trust the most are the ones capable of the deepest betrayal?" Rachel's eyes narrowed, understanding dawning. "This is about Mr. Reynolds, isn't it? What did he do?" "It was risky, but if I was to act, I needed allies. He's been seeing my wife, Mealy. Behind my back. And last night, I caught them." The words tasted bitter. Rachel's expression hardened. "That man has no morals. We need to do something about him, Alan. What's your plan?" Her eagerness surprised me, but it was exactly what I needed. "I'm thinking it needs to be something that takes away what he values the most, his career, his reputation. Can you get access to his emails, his contracts?" She nodded, a slight smirk playing on her lips. "I can do that." "What are you looking for exactly?" "Anything that shows misconduct, corruption, indiscretions, questionable decisions. Anything that could bring him down." "Consider it done," Rachel said, her voice a whisper of shared conspiracy. "Meet me here tomorrow. I'll have something for you." Back at home, the silence was suffocating. I couldn't stay there, not with every corner whispering Mealy's betrayal. I packed a bag with essentials and left, heading to a motel on the outskirts of the city. As I drove, my phone rang incessantly, Mealy, calling over and over. I ignored each call, focusing on the road and the storm brewing on the horizon. That night, as rain lashed against the motel window, I lay awake planning my next steps. Tomorrow would be the beginning of Mr. Reynolds' end. I would dismantle his life, piece by piece, just as he had mine. And Mealy? She would realize the cost of her betrayal soon enough. Sleep was elusive, chased away by images of the trellis, the pink underpants, the scattered rose petals. But in those wakeful moments, my resolve only hardened. They would both pay. And I would be the storm that broke them. The next morning, the coffee shop buzzed with the usual early crowd, but the air felt charged with a different energy for me. Rachel was already there, her laptop open and a stack of papers beside her cup. Her eyes met mine, and she nodded slightly, a signal that she had found something. My heart pounded with anticipation as I approached. "Found quite a bit more than just indiscretions," Rachel whispered as I slid into the seat opposite her. She pushed a USB drive across the table. "There's enough in here to start a wildfire under Mr. Reynolds." I pocketed the USB quickly, my mind already turning over the possibilities. "Anything directly linking him to financial misconduct?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Better," Rachel replied, her eyes gleaming with a mix of anger and excitement. "There's evidence of embezzlement and some very risky business deals that could easily tip into illegal with the right push." "Perfect," I breathed out. This was more than I had hoped for. "Rachel, thank you. This could not only ruin his career but could land him in serious legal trouble." She leaned back, satisfied. "He deserves this, Alan. After everything he's done, not just to you. He's been playing God at the company for too long." I nodded, the weight of the USB in my pocket anchoring the reality of the situation. "I'll take it from here. We'll need to be careful about how we release this information." As I left the coffee shop, I felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. I was about to set off a chain reaction that would undoubtedly engulf more than just Mr. Reynolds. But the path of retribution, once begun, offers no return. I drove to a nearby park, a quiet place where I could think through my next steps without interruption. Sitting on a secluded bench, I plugged the USB into my laptop. The files were a damning dossier of corruption and unethical behavior. Screenshots of emails, bank transactions, and confidential agreements painted a picture of a man who had been untouchable, until now. I spent the next hours crafting anonymous tips to local journalists, outlining the scope of Mr. Reynolds' misconduct with enough detail to whet their appetite but not so much to reveal my identity or Rachel's involvement. Each email sent felt like a step closer to justice, a stitch in the fabric of the new reality I was weaving. Just as I was about to close my laptop, a new email notification popped up. It was from Mealy. My breath caught as I opened it. "Alan, please, we need to talk. I know you're hurting, and I can't explain everything over a message, but there is so much more to this than you know. Please, let's meet. I still love you, and I swear, there's a reason for everything that happened. Mealy." For a moment, I hesitated. Her words tugged at old feelings, at the remnants of the life we had shared. But then I remembered the rose petals, the wine, the whispers behind the locked door. Hardening my heart, I deleted the email. There was no turning back. The sky was turning a deep orange as the sun set, a day ending, much like the life I had known. Tomorrow, the fallout would begin. Mr. Reynolds would face the consequences of his actions, and Mealy would learn the price of betrayal. As I drove back to the motel, the weight of my actions settled around me. This was not just revenge, it was a cleansing fire, set to burn away the decay and deceit that had infiltrated my life. I was ready to face whatever came next. The morning headlines blazed as brightly as the sun that day. Local business mogul caught in embezzlement scandal, the front page of the city paper screamed. The story detailed the nefarious activities of Mr. Reynolds, citing anonymous tips that had led to a sudden and thorough investigation. The news spread like wildfire, igniting discussions in every corner of the city. I sat in the sparse room of the motel, the newspaper spread out in front of me, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. The public disgrace of Mr. Reynolds was only the beginning of his downfall. His professional empire would crumble, but I had saved the final blow for a more personal venue. Later that day, I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was shaky, desperate. "Alan, please, you need to meet me." "It's urgent," Mealy pleaded. "Why should I?" I asked, the coldness in my own voice surprising even me. "Because there's more to the story, things you don't know about why I did what I did." "It's about your safety too," she replied, her voice cracking with emotion. Curiosity piqued despite my resentment. I agreed to meet her in the park where we had first confessed our love for each other, a poetic setting for what I anticipated to be our final goodbye. As I approached the bench where Mealy sat, looking small and forlorn, I felt a flicker of the old affection, quickly smothered by the betrayal. "Alan, she started, but I cut her off. "Just say what you need to say, Mealy." She took a deep breath, her eyes meeting mine, filled with tears. "I was blackmailed, Alan. It was Reynolds. He threatened to fabricate charges against you, embezzlement, fraud, crimes that could have put you in jail. I was scared. He promised it would all go away if I just did what he wanted." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My plan, so carefully executed to punish the guilty, had been crafted with incomplete information. "Why didn't you tell me?" My voice was a whisper, anger mixed with a piercing sorrow. "I wanted to protect you," she sobbed. "I thought I could handle it, end it quickly." "And the pink underpants?" I asked, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "He wore them as a sick joke. He knew about us, about how we joked about those silly prints in college." The complexity of my emotions was overwhelming, anger, betrayal, but also a dawning realization of the tragic manipulation that had ensnared us both. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. "But I understand now. It was all Reynolds' manipulation." Mealy reached out, but I stepped back, my decision clear. This is goodbye, Mealy. I can't rebuild from this. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Alan. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Mr. Reynolds had been arrested. The evidence I had provided had led to rapid legal action, compounded by his own panicked attempts to flee the country, which had only added to his guilt in the public's eye. Walking away from Mealy, from the park, and from a life I once knew, I felt the final pieces of my revenge settle into place. Reynolds would pay for his crimes, and I would start anew, far from the shadows of deceit. The betrayal had changed me, hardened me, but it had also freed me from a life built on lies. As I looked ahead, the path was uncertain, but it was mine to shape, away from the ghosts of the past.